And I remember at one point I felt like, what the hell? What do I have to lose at this point? And I felt like pulling the trigger. And, by the time I found myself there a little bit ahead of outside this lady's place, I was like, what the hell am I doing? This is
Yeah.
so wrong. Not who I am, not what I want. No, this sucks. I felt awful, right? It's hard because, of course, you do get messed up by things, but I mean, I remember even I don't know how long after. It was quite a while afterwards, but at some point I remember, I did not have time for anything, right? I was just living and breathing, trying to do a couple of things to make sure that we had some money at least, while at the same time essentially spending all day with my daughter, be ready to wake up in the middle of the night for her, all that. So, I had no time or energy for anything. And I remember, there was a friend who had been here and there, had been sending me a few bucks here and there to help me out. And at one point, he was like, "Oh, here is some money, but I don't want you to spend it for things you have to do because those never end. There's always something, and I'll try to help you something with it. But I want you to do this for something you want to do." And I'm like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Want to do?
Yeah.
There is no want to do in this space. There's nothing. And then, like at one point, I remember reading EQ, who was rather on friendly terms with sex workers, and thinking about, there's no way for the foreseeable future that I'm ever going to hook up with anybody because I'm emotionally messed up. It would not be right for them. I would just be using them to be able to have like a moment of beauty through sexuality, through being with a hot woman. But it would be a messed up thing to do because I would feel that like I wouldn't be ready for a relationship. I wouldn't be ready for, I don't really like one night stands with the ambiguity about expectations and emotions that come into it. So I remember at some point of like, sex workers. How EQ doesn't make it sound sordid and gross the way most of society makes it sound. Is there such a thing, or is it all like nasty street prostitution, people desperate on crack kind of thing? And then, doing my homework, I realized no, there are many, many different things that go under the same label, but they are not the same thing at all. There are contexts where some of these ladies have a ton of autonomy, freedom. They run their own business. They choose their own client. They actually make bank. And I'm like, if it's not an abusive scenario, is there anything really bad with it? And I remember at one point I felt like, what the hell? What do I have to lose at this point? And I felt like pulling the trigger. And, by the time I found myself there a little bit ahead of outside this lady's place, I was like, what the hell am I doing? This is
Yeah.
so wrong. Not who I am, not what I want. No, this sucks. I felt awful, right? But I'm like,
Mm.
I'm here. Let's find out. And I go in and I meet this lady who was insanely nice. And I get it, that's her job, right? But she was so insanely pleasant and sweet and nice. And again, one can say, okay, well, that's how she makes her money. That's how people want to keep going to see her because
Mm.
she makes them feel good, not just through sex, but through the overall experience.
Mm.
But the weirdest thing was after it was all said and done, she um, at one point she asked me about my life, and I'm like, I don't know that you want to know because it's heavy at this moment. But eventually I told her what was up, and she looked at me and she was like, "Don't pay me." And I'm like, "What do you mean, don't pay me? Of course I'll pay you." She's like, "No, no, you need the money more than I do. I'm doing all right." And it's like, and I'm
Wow.
like, and now we're having an argument in which I want to make sure she gets paid, and she wants to make sure I don't. And I'm like, that was the sweet, like in a context that everybody think would be the most sordid, gross, weird contest where anybody's gonna do whatever for 10 cents kind of thing. Having that degree of humanity with somebody that you're not gonna meet again, you're not gonna become best friends, it's not gonna be you're just being really fucking nice to each other in the moment in that hour to whatever you spend together. You are just super nice to each other and you actually genuinely care about each other,
Mm.
even though it's not going to go anywhere else. But finding that degree of kindness, of sweetness, just made me feel good about life. Made me feel good about humanity, made me feel good about life. So that was a interesting one.